A lot of what we had to make sure that we did with the art style was to, in essence, make it still feel like the post-nuclear world that it was. And that is the kind of the weird 50s, but 100 years after the 50s, if the 50s just stayed the 50s, and then bringing in this idea of Vegas.
Josh had one of the first team meetings, and he talked about Vegas as being one of his ideas, but more importantly, that it'd be the Rat Pack era. And when he said that, then I was just joyous, because it's just great aesthetics at that time.
When we started the game, there were a few things aesthetically that we knew we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that the architectural style of homes and as well as the casinos either reflected 50s style from the Vegas era, or it reflected an even earlier time, more like the settlers of the West.
But it's all about Vegas. And so we want to make sure that we have this feeling of sort of this neon, and again, it feels like you're going in there and you're playing around with the mobsters, you're playing around with the Rat Pack.
The scope of this game is massive. You have basically a city in the middle of this area, and then the territory stretches all around the city and does stretch out all the way to Boulder City and to the dam.
When doing Vegas, we didn't want to neglect any of the surrounding areas around Vegas. We wanted to make sure that we had Fremont Street realized, and we have a location called Freeside in the game before they even hit Vegas. And I think once they get a taste of that, they're going to be suitably intrigued to go, okay, well, if that's Freeside, hell, I wonder what Vegas is going to be like.
The Vegas that we were representing was really classic Vegas. This is something that dovetails nicely with the general aesthetic of the Fallout series as a whole.
Everything to do with the Strip is a big artistic playground. One of the strengths we saw about being able to use Vegas as a location is because all those casinos have their own individual themes. It's like a big amusement park the size of a city. And not only do designers have a lot of fun doing quests for those areas, but artists have a fantastic time going, you know what? We can just play around with this location because that's what Vegas is all about.
When I take pictures or give reference and then say, I kind of want to like it like this, I'm kind of going to want to like this, it's very nice to see the artist come back with something that's even better than what I had imagined in the first place. I think people are really going to dig how different it is from the Capital Wasteland and how we sort of captured the feeling of the Mojave.
We're going to put the story somewhere in the West. So, of course, Vegas. I mean, what is more iconic when you think of crazy things that you could do in the West?
I think that was really the inspiration for the story in a lot of ways, was looking back at the history of Vegas.
We really think of it as a side story. In a lot of ways, we're revisiting stuff from the original 2 games, but it stands on its own.
The first thing our creative lead and our project director did was they sat down and they sort of examined what sort of themes they wanted to explore in New Vegas.
Every Fallout game pretty much starts with war never changes. And the idea behind that is really that humanity has this unending appetite for killing each other.
Fallout New Vegas is a post-apocalyptic role-playing game. It's set a couple of hundred years after a cataclysmic nuclear war between the US and China, and it takes place at a time when the city of New Vegas is actually being rebuilt.
Fallout 3 starts with you being born, and you're a baby, and you go through your young adulthood until you leave the vault. In New Vegas, we wanted to say you start the game in a very Vegas sort of cliche style almost. You are shot in the head and dropped in a shallow grave, so it starts with essentially your would-be death.
After you're shot and left for dead in a grave, you might have some desire to go see what the whole murdering business was about and why he wanted you dead in the first place.
In the course of trying to resolve that one conflict, you get pulled into larger events. So in this case, you're trying to find the people that killed you and what they were trying to get from you. In this case, it was a package you were carrying. So, of course, as you go around, you find out that what you were carrying is centrally tied into this major conflict in the area between New California Republic and Caesar's Legion and Mr. House, who's the guy that sort of runs the Strip in New Vegas. Player freedom is very important in the Fallout series, and when we allow the player to basically have a choice in what they do and how they do it, by leaving the plot open in a way that basically they're just learning what's going on in the world, it gives them a lot more freedom in how they want to learn that information.
the environment is genuinely reacting to what you do as the player. You have a pretty extraordinary amount of control over the outcome of the game.